Good evening. How are we? So tonight's live guest is going to be Hugo in a second when we get him on the live stream. So maybe you could just let me know you can see the video. I'm going to share with you in a second with Hugo some really interesting bits and pieces on his journey to doing a half Ironman yesterday. And yeah, hopefully I'm seriously inspired by his journey. I know I was and am, and so it's going to be really, really cool just to catch up with him and listen to his story. Hugo and I actually played rugby together at university, so when he gave me the call to ask him to coach him, obviously like everybody I could work with, it's a privilege, and here he is. So, how are we doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good mate, good. A little bit stiff and sore, but getting there.
Good man. Well, you stay in that seated position, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for popping on tonight, mate. Appreciate that and sharing the story. And, hopefully, maybe inspire some other people to, to take action and do stuff that they want to do as well. So, awesome stuff, mate. So, apart from being in bed this morning when I called you, everything else all right?
Yeah. I had to sort of muddle my way through a few meetings with slightly sort of fuzzy head today, feeling a little bit tired, but I got through the day and then finished it off with a good Nando's. So all good in the end.
Good man. 3 takeaways inside 24 hours. I think it's a good
Oh yeah,
way to round off a good weekend.
well deserved.
Yeah, too right. Cool.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give people a bit of an outline on what we're going to chat through here is obviously probably start from the beginning, really, Hugo, in terms of obviously, for most of us, most people watching this video will know either you or I, funnily enough, and some people wouldn't necessarily know that we went to university together and played in the same rugby team, albeit very different positions, I must say.
Slightly different body compositions.
Well, at that time, yeah. Although you're looking lean now, mate. So that's when we met. Back like 2006, 2008.
Yeah.
And then obviously since then you went on to play like pretty high level of rugby after university as well. And then sort of if we fast forward through all of that into what happened to you kind of 15 months ago, yeah, you happy to sort of just discuss a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So yeah, started out with rugby obviously with you, then played rugby until 32, 33, and then retired actually. So was still just sort of fairly fit, but definitely not what I used to be. And then yes, I've been retired for about 6 or 7 months after I got married. Started noticing a real decline in my fitness over a sort of 3 or 4 month period. Sort of the more I was doing, the more unfit I was.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I was running, trying to go for just a 3K, very, very slow jog. And I was getting to the end of the road and having to stop sort of, 300-400 meters. And that wasn't where I was before. I was never the fittest bloke, but I mean, it had definitely fallen off and I wasn't feeling right. So I went to my doctor and he said he thought I had a bit of a chest infection. I kept coughing and things.
Mm-hmm.
Gave me an inhaler and things, so I saw that out. Absolutely nothing seemed to work.
Yeah.
And then one day was mowing the grass and started to feel really lightheaded and felt like I had an elephant sitting on my chest.
Right.
Went inside to have a little sit down. Turned around to the wife and said, "I think there's something really, really wrong here. We need to go to hospital now." So went outside and decided I had to drive myself to hospital, stop the wife driving because she'd only just learned how to drive, and I thought, I've got a better chance of survival if I drive.
I wonder if you, how are you going to context it?
Yeah. To which point I was sat in the driver's seat and she started getting her makeup bag and things, going, "Oh no, I can't go to hospital looking like this." So all in a bit of a panic. I had to turn around and say, it's slightly fruity language. I think I suggest you get in the car sooner rather than later because we need to get moving. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to hospital, parked the car up, couldn't even walk up there's like a little gentle ramp up to the A&E. Couldn't even get up there, sort of lay down on the pavement. A nurse saw me as she was starting a shift, so came and got a wheelchair for me, wheeled me up to A&E, went in and had some fairly routine tests to check my pulse, my blood pressure and things. Everything started to look seem okay and fine. I've still felt absolutely horrendous. Still felt I had loads of elephants sitting on my chest.
Wow.
Then they said everything sounded fine and nothing seemed to be wrong, and that they thought it might have been the chest infection that they thought I might have had.
Mm.
And then they did this one test where they test for an enzyme in the blood, and you only get this enzyme in the blood when you've had a heart attack.
Okay.
I forgot what the enzyme's called, but someone will know.
Yeah.
Anyway, they did the blood test just as a precautionary measure. When everyone's feeling a chest pain, they always do it. And they were sort of writing me off and packing me up, ready to get out of the hospital. And then all of a sudden, a team of doctors and nurses come into the room and say, right, you need to get out of bed anymore. You've had a pretty major heart attack. Your heart's failed quite badly. We need to figure out what's happened and why it's happened.
Mm.
So very luckily, there just happened to be this top-level cardiologist working in the hospital at the time. He straight away ordered an echo of my heart, so like the same echo they used to look at babies in the womb. They did the same on my heart, and it turned out I had a pretty catastrophic aortic valve failure. So where my aortic stem, so the aorta is the major artery coming out of the heart, and then the aortic valve is the thing that shuts after the blood's pumped to stop the blood going back into the heart. And basically what happened is my aortic root had enlarged so much it had torn my aortic valve in half. So the aortic valve had completely failed, and I was getting this thing called aortic regurgitation. So blood was going out of the heart and then just going straight back into the heart again. So no blood was getting around my body properly. And that eventually caused the muscle to fail. And they think this might have been happening over a few months. The aortic root was dilating more and more and more and putting more and more stress on the heart. And that's why I was feeling so rough and not being able to jog more than a few hundred meters. And that was pretty symptomatic. So from there, they said, you don't really have any other option. You need to have open heart surgery. We need to replace the valve. So they got me an ambulance up to London Bridge Hospital to have the surgery. Met up with a very nice German surgeon called Olaf Wendler, which I thought was the best name ever. Thought I'm in good hands here. Must be the German engineering in the heart.
Nice sounds.
Yeah. And so he turned around to me and said, okay, we're going to put a metal valve in your heart, so a carbon titanium valve. And then we're also going to replace the root and the arch as well with carbon titanium piping. So I've got now a great big clicky valve that goes tick every time my heart beats.
Oh yeah, I heard.
Yeah, you can actually hear it when I'm just lying there. So I've got the whole top of my heart's been replaced with artificial valve and root. The operation was done in about 2 days. You need to stabilize me first. Something odd happens to your body when you have a heart attack and you start retaining loads of fluid. So I blew up like a balloon. I looked like I was sort of full of water. It was a very, very odd thing.
Yeah.
And so they need to get some of the water off my chest before they operated. So they put me on diuretics. And then 6 days after the operation, I was out of hospital. Pretty horrendous operation. Quite painful one. I think I'd rather forget. But I started feeling really quite good again within a couple of weeks. It was incredible.
Right.
So started off literally, I could just about get out of bed and walk down the corridor on day 2 or 3 after the operation, to the point where I could walk around the corridor, go downstairs, get a cup of tea, come back upstairs by day 6.
Yeah.
So it was quite a quick recovery. So yeah, and that was my sort of starting point from heart failure. So absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Am I right in saying that was 15? How long ago was that? You were 14?
So it was May last year.
Okay, yeah. So it was 14.
Yeah, 14, 15 months ago. Yeah.
Okay, so at what point, did you think, or what made, what was the sort of bit where you went, okay, so I've had this open heart surgery. Were you given specific advice from the surgeon that you must do certain types of fitness, or was it that you wanted to find a new challenge? And tell me kind of how you sort of ended up on the direction of probably something more towards what you're doing now.
Well, I've never been a distance athlete in any way, shape, or form at all. I was a prop from rugby, and I weighed sort of close to 120 kilos on a good day. My mobility wasn't the best. I was fairly mobile. I was never a fit person. But my heart surgeon said to me, as a young person, he'd expect me to start getting onto a fitness bike within 3 or 4 weeks after the operation. He said, "You're not like most people that have these operations. Most people have these operations tend to be in their sort of 50s, 60s. They haven't done sport for years anyway." But he said, with me, because you're young and you were fit before, he said you'll start to get it back quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I think when it started to sort of click that I might want to try and do something was that when I started running again, all of a sudden I wasn't getting tired at all. Well, not tired at all, but I just wasn't fatiguing like I ever was before. My heart seemed to be working absolutely brilliantly. Yeah, I was getting oxygen to the muscles, and my legs weren't just dragging underneath me. So I think I started jogging on a treadmill at about the 2 month mark, and the heart surgeon, he said, try and limit your heart rate to not getting over 150 for the first sort of 3 or 4 months, because he doesn't want to sort of push things too hard rather than feeling inside. So I kept it at that, but within that range, I was able to run 5-6 kilometers quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Without going over, and that sort of got me thinking, well, if I can do this at this stage, I wonder what I can do in 6 months' time. I wonder what I can do in a year's time. And that sort of started trickling through my head, and I was sort of pondering. And since rugby had finished, I've been absolutely lost with what to do. I was still trying to weight lift and trying to live the rugby dream still, and still eating like I was playing rugby and just putting on body fat. I wasn't in good shape. And then I was chatting with a friend of mine, and he just said, well, seeing as you're jogging and things, we might as well do an Ironman. Which I thought was pretty aggressive to say to a guy who just had cardiac failure. But yeah, so he said that to me, and that once that seed was planted, I just thought to myself, well, why not? I guess I'm starting to jog again. I haven't swum a length in a pool since I was 18. So I don't know how I'll do that, but I've cycled a bit, so at least I can ride a bike, and anyone can run, right? So you just got to keep practicing. And so I thought, well, why not? Let's give this a go. Entered into my first aquathon, I think it's how you pronounce it, where you just a swim run, which was just a 400-meter swim and a 5K run. And that I'd already tried swimming a bit and jogging a bit, and this is maybe pushing it a bit. I think this was only about 6 months after the operation. And I swam 400 meters. I think it was 10.5 minutes. So really, really slow. Okay, 32 minutes. But I think it was only 6 or 7 months after the op, and I thought that was a bit of an achievement. I thought, well, we just keep improving from. That's when I got in touch with you, Matt.
Yeah. So that was. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sort of latter part of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When you came down and we did your swim analysis, and we had a good chat, as we always do, consultation around how this journey might look. We didn't in the COVID-19 bit. No. So this year's been a little bit different in terms of what we may have done. However, 104 kilos at the start of the training plan.
Yeah, I think just over 104. Yeah, I think and I think I'd already lost about 10 kilos at that point, so I was already fairly far down.
Yeah, and like in terms of like for those people watching the video who are kind of familiar or maybe not familiar with some sort of performance indicators on the bike, like we use a test that's like a 20-minute test. You see how much power you can put through the pedals in the 20 minutes, and it gives you a reading. So you may put out 260 watts in, as an average power output during that 20 minutes, and that is then, or a bit more than that, and then you take 95% of that, and that gives you what we call our sort of functional threshold. And then we use that to sort of help with our training and race organisation and planning for that. So that was yours around then, wasn't it, Hugo? Around 260.
Yeah, I think maybe just under 258 or 260.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my absolute max power for the 20 minutes.
Yeah, so if we say like 260 based on a weight of 104 kilos, now I'm not a massive maths person, but I reckon that's somewhere around 2.6 watts per kilo.
Yeah.
Maybe just less. And since we've since obviously you started, like one of the major things that you can see in terms of your fitness is that you not only have you dropped 7 kilos, but you've also increased your power from 260 watts to 368. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah. 368 was my last test.
It's
That was a few months ago still as well, so might have even got slightly better since then.
I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. Like, I mean, when you read those numbers, it's, Jesus, like most people would be through the roof on that.
Yeah.
So, what would you say in the sort of since you've been doing your triathlon training? What things have you sort of learned, about yourself that you think, oh, I don't know if I've ever seen this before because I've always been involved in a team sport. Like, what sort of things have you learned along the way, mate, about yourself? And yeah, I mean, you're very
Um,
aren't you? Because you obviously with your work. So
yeah. I think it's mostly to personal motivation more than anything. Like you say, it's always being involved in team sport and having really structured activities to go into like a training session at rugby. And no matter what, if you don't step up, you're going to get found out really quickly. And that's been the motivating factor. But if you come home from work and it's 9 o'clock at night and you've got a 10K run to do as part of your training, the only person really pushing you is you. And so being able to find that motivation yourself has been really, really key. But yeah, also having a very understanding and lovely wife who wants to train alongside you is absolutely crucial. So definitely finding out that you need to have all your family and friends on board is absolutely vital, and you really can't do it without them. But yeah, so I'd say the motivation part is probably the absolute number one thing that's to come out of it.
And so obviously, like with lockdown and obviously everything, like in terms of not being able to use the gym and the pool, you've had to adapt your training a fair bit.
Yeah.
What have you found hard? Like, have you found any elements of that hard, like to do?
Yeah, I'd say the swim probably. So obviously the pools were shut for a while. I thought my swimming was having, like I say, I hadn't swum a length in a pool since I was 18 and at school, I think, or maybe even earlier than that. Maybe I stopped swimming before I left school. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really weak part of my training. I wasn't that good. I was getting better, but I was relying on the push off from the wall quite a lot. And to then go from that to having no pool, no lake, nothing to swim in. I'd never swum in open water properly before, apart from dipping my toe in the sea down in Cornwall.
Yeah.
Every now and again. And then to then just going, right, well, I need to figure out something to do. Finding out that, with social distancing and all the rest of it, you could go into a lake if they'd got all the criteria in place.
Yeah.
So went to a lake, bought a wetsuit, never tried it before, jumped in, went around a 200-meter loop and was absolutely gassed by the end of it, thinking that my swimming was coming along. But but within, I'd say, a month of open water swimming, I was back and really flying. But it's definitely been probably the most challenging part. I think on the bike and the run, you can still do as much activity around that as you want by yourself. But not being able to swim has been really challenging.
Yeah.
And also, I'd say not only that, but not having anything to aim towards. As the Ironman events, they started calling them off. All the other events started getting called off. You're thinking, well, why am I doing this? I haven't really got anything to aim towards. And that's really demotivating to try and sort of keep up your training, to not know when you're supposed to be peaking. Was quite difficult.
Yeah.
So just trying to stay consistent, because that's the thing. It's probably one of the biggest things I've learned over the last year is if you're not consistent, then it's gonna pay the price. But if you are consistent, it pays absolute dividends.
Yeah.
When it comes to race day.
I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed, like across everybody who I'm coaching, is like if you're consistent, like you can kind of peak, you can build, you can do whatever you want, however you want to call it, a lot easier. Like, I know it's a bit cliche, but Will Smith said, if you stay ready, you haven't got to get ready. So like, you kind of like consistent across what you're trying to do. Yes, you're not trying to peak every week because clearly, like, you don't know when your race is going to come. But equally, if you're just consistently trying to get better, then you're not going to be far away from where you need to be, because that attitude kind of carries you through, doesn't it? And I think that's what I like. I like being around people like that who just want to try and get better all the time. So I imagine
I had this sort of thought process that you're on this sort of upward curve of your ability
Mm.
as you're going to get better, and that all that happens with events being pushed further and further away is that you just carry on that upward curve of your ability. So when the event does actually come, you're going to be at your best.
Yeah.
So you just keep acting like you're always trying to improve, and then when you do come to an event, you're better than you were when the last event was meant to take place.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. Exactly. So let's move to the weekend when you completed your first half Ironman. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know we talked loosely about like different times and all that kind of stuff. We'll maybe come to that later on. But for you, like anything that across the weekend that you particularly enjoyed, like what was it like? What was it you really enjoyed about the weekend that just happened yesterday? For those people who didn't know that yesterday.
Yeah. I'd say running with a crowd is absolutely brilliant. Having support there, although as limited as it was, because they did encourage, no spectators, and there weren't really supposed to be that many there. But even having the stewards clapping you on and things was absolutely brilliant.
Mm.
And probably my most favourite thing, and thinking I'd never get the chance to do this, was actually overtaking someone in a race. It's probably the best feeling I've ever had. So when I was in the water, it's one of the few times I was overtaking people. But when I was in the water, I think I passed about 6 or 7 people in the water. So going from being able to swim a couple of lengths to overtaking people of a similar ability to me, and some who I thought were going to absolutely thrash me in the water, and I was overtaking them. That was absolutely brilliant. And then the same on the bike as well. If I could have backed up with a faster run, I think I would have been almost competitive. But yeah, it's one of the best feelings for somebody that's come from a really competitive background like rugby, being able to actually beat somebody in a competition. It sounds quite sort of selfish, but it's really, really satisfying.
Well, it sort of race is, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. So what? Anything like so before like the race, like anything that you were kind of nervous about, like in the sort of close proximity to the race day?
Everything. Absolutely everything. I didn't really know what I was going to do in transition. I was worried I was going to be a bit panicky when I got first in the water and start sort of hyperventilating a bit and I don't know, not being like I was in training. So in training, it's fine when you're by yourself. If you slow down a bit, it doesn't really matter. But then in race day, you just want to be as fast as you can. I was worried I might blow up a bit. And then I think from my running experience being quite limited and definitely my weakest area, I was really worried about getting to 5-10K in and then just absolutely blowing up and really, really struggling. I'd always getting my nutrition right. It's been a real learning curve for me. So I was really worried I was going to mess that up, but managed to get that sorted and power through and finish the run strong in easily my best time ever. So
Yeah.
So yeah.
With a 1.2 mile swim and a 56 mile bike ride in challenging.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
To think that was your best ever run time, as well, like,
by like 8 minutes as well. So yeah, I'm absolutely over the moon with it.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, and obviously, I'm just thinking, just in terms of like post race, obviously we went and had a nice refuel across food chains, and which was good fun. What would you say to anybody? Like, I mean, Hugo, yours is quite a unique story in terms of like how far you've come from. Well, being pretty close to not being around. To completing what you did yesterday, it must be like, I know obviously how proud Sarah was, and I imagine your parents are too. And what would you say to anybody else who's out there, maybe maybe not even like had such quite, I don't want to call it bad luck. What would you say to them if they're sort of sat on the fence right now thinking about, what they could maybe do?
Just do it. Do something. Set a goal at a decent distance away in terms of time wise. So for me, it was doing a half Ironman a year from when I met you. So trying to set something that seems unachievable at the time, but it's far enough away that you could really improve yourself to be able to complete it. But yeah, just get off your ass and try something.
Yeah.
You have no idea what you can do until you try,
Yeah.
and you have no idea how much you can improve until you give it a go. I mean, I went from being able to walk up and down the corridor or getting out of breath to running a sub 2 hour half marathon at the end of a half Ironman. So, so I mean, if I can do that, I'm pretty sure most fit, healthy people can do pretty much whatever they want
Yeah.
if they're just willing to put a bit of time and effort into it, and it's well worth it. It's worth every second of it.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah. So, what are you thinking now then, Hugo? In terms of, I mean, obviously, I know like a few of your races from this year have been rescheduled, um, and yeah, what would you like to try? You know, what next for you then, mate? What would be your kind of like what are you thinking?
Well, I have promised my wife I'm never going to do a full Ironman. So we'll have to see how that one goes. Might have to be a trade-off between getting her a puppy and me doing a full Ironman.
I'll get that puppy order for you, mate.
But yeah, no. I'm just trying to look forward to next year now. I've got a couple more. Got an Olympic distance, and then we're doing the event down in Cornwall. Um, and then it's all about next year now. So I've got Graz 70.3 next year, Weymouth 70.3. I've got there's a property triathlon called the JLL Triathlon, which I'm booked into in July as well. So I've already got 3 events booked in for next year. I'm hoping they're going to be a lot more. I'd like to try and do maybe 3 or 4 half Ironman distances next year, and then just build from there. And then use this off season now to just try and get my running sorted and try and get even more competitive.
Yeah, mate, absolutely phenomenal. Well, I mean, you know, I think there's plenty of people out there who would love to do what you did yesterday. So you know, hats off to you, mate. That's why I wanted to share this story, really, mate, because yes, very very inspirational, and you know, and I've been doing the sport for a little while now, and you do meet lots of really nice people in the sport, and I think for us, having come from a team sport background largely, to go into an individual sport, it's really nice to have nice people around. You know, obviously we've got our own little race team, and a nice group of people that we can kind of share events and memories with, which I think is always a good thing. I always like to try and like do an event at least with a friend or someone we know, like as often as we can, or take your wife with you and do a bit of traveling at the same time. It's just a good excuse to do stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
because you could go to a town like Graz in Austria next year. I don't think there'd be any other reason for me to go to Graz next year than other to do a half Ironman. So what an excuse to go travelling.
Exactly, mate. Well, we might even be able to get a few of the other people from the team and maybe do a little trip away if travel restrictions allow it.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Awesome, Hugo. Thank you very much for your time tonight, mate.
No worries.
That and everybody else who's watching, hope you've enjoyed our little chat. And Hugo's story, massively inspirational, and really proud of what he did yesterday. So, and also as well for everybody else who was out there racing and out there enjoying themselves yesterday. It was, I think, I'll probably speak on behalf of everyone. It was just absolutely amazing to be out there and yeah, to be able to actually do the things we enjoy, and well done to the events team for organising it, because it wasn't easy to host an event like that, and they did a great job, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Have a nice evening, mate.
Awesome. Okay.
I'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers, man.